Your brain is the powerhouse behind your life. On this podcast, we explore strategies to strengthen your connections, build resilience, and navigate life's ups and downs with a focus on brain health.
Discover how understanding and caring for your brain can transform your relationships and empower you to face any challenge with confidence.
Get ready to brain it on. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Brain It On. Today, we're exploring the power of inspiration, how stories, music, poetry, and other artistic mediums can serve as a roadmap for navigating our own trials and triumphs. We'll be sharing our personal journey through Thomas's cancer and how themes from classic literature and film have offered us guidance, strength, and hope.
More specifically, we're going to be exploring the relevant themes found in J.R.R. Tolkien's classic series, The Lord of the Rings. So we're kicking off a special 3-part series of episodes that'll dive into the inspirational principles and truths that can be found through artistic mediums like the literature, music, poetry, etc. that you were talking about there.
And that's why we have the fancy music.
Exactly, the fancy Shire music.
Yes.
Not our usual, guitar intro music.
Mixing it up, keeping it fresh.
Exactly.
And we're looking forward to how these can offer us insights from Lord of the Rings about navigating both our own personal trials and also hopefully allow our listeners and viewers on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, the chance to see yourself within these stories.
Yeah. Now I'm stoked about the series. When Lindsey suggested that we do an episode or episodes based on The Lord of the Rings, it was probably my proudest moment as a husband. I've had a long relationship with this series of stories. I read them as a child. I was probably 4 or 5 when my mom started reading them to me. Yeah. So bless her heart for doing that. And, I also dressed up like a Black Rider for Halloween for like 4 years straight. And this was back in like the early 90s when no one knew what that was. And so I don't know if me doing it before it was cool makes me some sort of Lord of the Rings hipster. Who's to say? But yes, it does.
I would say it does.
But I watched the cringy 1970s cartoons of it. I learned all the poems. And anyways, it's just something that's near and dear to my heart. So the fact that you wanted to jump in and do this means the world to me. I'm so nerdy. I'm actually, instead of my normal wedding band today, wearing my Lord of the Rings replica ring from New Zealand. It has like the black speech on it and everything. And I figured if there was a day to wear it, today would be the day. So.
Today is not that day. No, today is that day.
Today is that day.
So yes, honestly, if you are not a Lord of the Rings fan or you haven't seen the films, you might think that this is not for you. I wasn't that way either until meeting Thomas. I had watched a little bit of the first movie, but I certainly wasn't enthusiastic or I didn't have a big knowledge about it previously.
I forgive you.
Thank you. But I love that you're a Lord of the Rings hipster, and I am fully immersed in the story and the lore, and I love it as well.
I remember I started reading it to you.
Yes.
After we got married. Mm-hmm. I waited till marriage because now you couldn't go anywhere.
Just to play it safe.
You had to lay in bed next to me and listen to me.
It was beautiful. We actually started it up again. You started reading the other night. Uh-huh. You do the voices. Are you going to do some of your voices for us today in the episode?
Perhaps.
I hope you do.
Perhaps.
So again, if you're not into these types of movies, know that we're going to talk about themes that transcend the genre and that are applicable to everyone's lives.
Yeah, really. That's what's powerful about stories is they're a way to find inspiration sometimes in the most unexpected places. When you're facing a challenge or trying to understand something complex, a good story can be like a little secret door.
A secret tunnel.
Secret tunnels. That's an Avatar reference. Avatar Last Airbender reference. So 50 points to Gryffindor.
Thank you.
For you for that. That's awesome.
Thank you. So just like a secret door, a secret tunnel, these stories bypass our defenses, right?
Right. Our normal defenses that we might have up against like direct advice or lectures, the themes, the underlying truths, they just kind of sink in almost without you noticing. It's like you're enjoying the adventure, the characters, the world, and suddenly you realize you've absorbed something profound, something that resonates with your own experience in a way that plain speaking just couldn't have.
Totally. And actually, so you were not a Brené Brown fan when we met.
I was not. Well, I mean, I wasn't not a fan. I didn't know who she was.
You didn't know who she was. But much like I entered your world of Lord of the Rings, I brought you into the realm of Brene Brown
the fold.
social emotional learning, and something that she talks about in her book, Atlas of the Heart, and actually more specifically her HBO series.
Right,
Called
of the same name. Yeah.
She uses movie clips to illustrate complex emotions, making it more relatable. And when she does this, it shows how stories, again, like you mentioned, allow you to bypass defenses and explore deeper truths that resonate with us. And she talks about one of her, I believe it's Dare to Lead, perhaps, a book that she wrote. She says, owning our stories can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running away from them. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light. Little goosebumps hearing that one.
Straight up.
And that's what stories do. They help us explore our vulnerabilities and find that inner light.
I'm really glad you had me watch that with you. It put a lot of things in perspective. And hearing you talk about it now makes me think about how much I leaned on like stories like Lord of the Rings throughout my treatment.
It wasn't just like escapism.
No, it wasn't pure escapism. It might have been a little bit.
A little bit.
But it was a way of finding strength, seeing examples of resilience, and reminding myself that even in the darkest times, there's always hope. And, that's really what we're doing with this little series here is we got closer to being able to return to Bend from Portland. We started to talk about our hometown as the Shire, our own little Shire here. It was the beautiful place where the hobbits start out in. That's their little homeland. It's all green and grassy and tranquil. And
here in Bend in our Shire, it's actually white. It's snowing out right now.
It is snowing right now. And I get really excited when it snows and I get very distracted.
It's taking everything within Thomas to not like run outside and do snow angels. So thank you.
It is. We might have to shut the window shades because I'm just mesmerized.
I know I brought up the snow. I shouldn't have. So it's white in our Shire right now.
It is. So anyways, when we got back from Portland, we were like, hey, let's pop in Lord of the Rings. We haven't watched it for a while. And it's amazing that as we grow as people and go through things, the stories we love, if they're, written well, can also grow and mean different things to us as we evolve as people.
I was actually going to do a Lord of the Rings inspired episode years ago, back when we had the Positive Choices podcast. I don't know if you knew this or not, but I wanted to relate the epic adventure of Lord of the Rings to like a teaching adventure when you first become an educator.
Yeah.
And so I actually had this in one of my files on my phone. And as we were talking about Bend being our Shire, I realized, oh my gosh, this is the context. Like this is where I see myself way more authentically, way in a much deeper level, truly feeling like the Lord of the Rings, the burden, this heavy burden you're carrying. This season of our lives, it resonates so much more than the original podcast idea, which never came to light. But now we're in this season where it has a different meaning, as you mentioned.
It's real relevant now.
Should we give the spoiler alert?
We should.
Yes, it's very obvious, but
we're going to have spoilers in this podcast.
Yes.
If you haven't seen Lord of the Rings by now, you probably have avoided it on purpose somehow.
But we encourage you to watch it. And I, as my whole family knows, I get really enthusiastic about a story or a movie if I see a new movie. And I may or may not have spoiled some Star Wars movies, some new movies in the past. So I have to give spoiler alerts whenever I share something.
It's decent of you. It's very decent of you.
So before we move on to the core content for this episode, shall we do a quick health highlight?
Yes, let's have a quick health highlight.
So on March 2nd, we left OHSU and we returned home to Bend, our Shire. We're so happy to be home. We have the Shire background behind us and we have some of Thomas's favorite things around us.
Nerdy trinkets.
Nerdy trinkets all around. We're so happy to be home. And Thomas spent exactly 4.5 consecutive months away from home being treated in Portland for your bone marrow transplant. And that was 142 days. But who counted?
Who counted indeed? As of this week, I've been fighting cancer for 8 months.
High five.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I've been home for 2 weeks with you, readjusting to home life, but not necessarily home life as we've known it. I still can't really see people or go anywhere because my immune system is still kind of shoddy right now. And we're waiting for my neutrophils to go up and my ability to fight off diseases. And so, I don't want my grafts compromised further. And it's a whole thing. So
We're having to be cautious.
all my friends and family that I haven't gotten to see since I've been back, just know that I would love to visit with you as soon as I possibly can.
Yes, that time will come very soon.
Yeah.
Since returning home, Thomas started to get these headaches.
Yeah.
So to be safe, they did a lumbar puncture on Friday, which is a test where they take out some of his cerebral spinal fluid to see if there is any leukemia in there. Most likely the headaches are just a result from the radiation that you went through.
Right.
And our fingers are crossed and we're praying that the results will just show that, there's some inflammation there. But I appreciate that our doctors wanted to be safe.
Yeah, for sure. They can do as many little tests as they want on me. More information is better. And they did a really good job here at St. Charles with the lumbar puncture. I was very impressed.
They did.
Yeah.
And we don't know the results yet. We thought it might happen this weekend. My chart will just tell us.
Right.
But now that the days, it's almost over. We're probably going to get the news tomorrow.
Probably, which is St. Patrick's Day.
Hopefully this will break the holiday news curse, which it's actually comical. For most of the major holidays leading up to today, we've gotten some not so awesome news. So we're hoping that tomorrow is different. And a totally different side note is that you have some of the best nails I've ever seen now.
Thank you. That's all thanks to my new stem cells from Fraulein Olga.
Yes.
You can actually see, it's almost like rings on a tree. You can see where my nails stopped and hers started. And hers are way nicer than mine.
I have some nail envy now. I do.
Yeah, I would too. I'm stoked.
And our donor, we call her Olga. We don't know her real name,
No.
but she has so kindly offered, or she has accepted the request that we have to have more stem cells donated. Yeah. Thomas's graft, he's not fully engrafted with his transplant. And so I believe it's April 30th, she's going to do another donation. So on May 1st, they're going to fly the fresh stem cells, and you're going to have a secondary or supplemental transplant to get your counts up. And it's just going to give you the boost that you need for your body to fight off any remaining cancer and to get your transplant fully engrafted. So we are so thankful to her again.
Hats off to Olga. We really appreciate you wherever you are right now. Hopefully living your best life, our best life out in Germany. And I look forward to having more of your stem cells. I hope that doesn't sound creepy.
It does not. In this context, I think it's perfectly acceptable. All right. Shall we transition to Lord of the Rings?
Yes, let us.
We have a new song for that.
Yeah. Also fits with the St. Patrick's Day theme too, you know?
Yes, I didn't even think of that.
All right. Okay, so like we said, when we started watching Lord of the Rings when we got back home from Portland, we started finding ourselves in the stories, having kind of profound epiphanies about our journey.
For instance, you've been carrying the ring, like the cancer, this tremendous burden that I cannot bear. It's yours to bear. But like Sam, I can be by your side and offer support and do whatever I can.
And honestly, you have been my Sam. You've been keeping me going when I feel like I couldn't take another step. And so I'm just so honored to have had you alongside me in this journey.
Ooh, you're going to make me cry. And you've done the same.
If you cry, I'll cry. It'll be a mess.
Oh, and it can feel daunting knowing that you have this huge journey or adventure ahead of you to fight cancer, to overcome a major challenge, whatever it is that's in your life right now. If you have a complex relationship or you're pushing through maybe a period of grief or change that feels hard, it's tempting to want to find an easier path, like a shortcut. But sometimes, as Galadriel says in The Rings of Power, sometimes the perilous path is the only path, which also brings me to another quote that is similar that we found applicable. And in fact, we've actually said this back and forth to each other. Yeah. And I'll reference you or I'll ask you to say it again with me because it's so comforting. I hope you do your Gandalf voice here in a moment. But it's the conversation between Frodo and Gandalf when Frodo is at this place where he doesn't want to go on the perilous path. This is not something that he wanted to sign up for. And Gandalf gives him some encouraging words. So would you do the honors, Thomas?
I would love to. Okay,
so Frodo says, "I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened."
So do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. There are other forces at work in this world, Frodo, besides the will of evil. Bilbo was meant to find the ring, in which case you are also meant to have it. And that is an encouraging thought.
That is a quote that I've told you when I've said, I'll just look at you and I'll say, I wish the ring had never come to us. Like, I wish you never had cancer. Mm. And then...
So do all who live to see such times.
And then you'll say that. And it's just this reminder of like, yeah, we don't get to pick our circumstances, but we can choose how we respond with the time that's given us, which is just, so powerful.
Yeah, we can't change the past, but we can choose how we respond to the present. It's so interesting that Frodo's initial reaction to learning about the ring back when they're at Bag End was to try to get rid of it and give it to Gandalf. Like, who? You take it. Hot potato. And after Gandalf says he can't / won't take it, Frodo asks the question, what must I do then? You know, and that was kind of like when I learned I had cancer. I was like, I don't want cancer. No, okay, I have it. What do I have to do then? You know? And so Gandalf gives pretty specific instructions to the plan Frodo's to follow until they get to Rivendell later. And that's kind of what, it was like in a 2-day turnaround period where we found out, I have cancer. This is the plan. We have to go to OHSU in 5 days.
I was a lot like Frodo. My immediate reaction when we were in the oncology office was, why can't Thomas be treated here? Thomas's mom, as we mentioned before, has pancreatic cancer, and she was receiving her cancer treatment at the Bend Cancer Center. And we were driving her there. We knew the staff at the front desk, and we were there quite often. And so we're sitting here in a different part of the cancer center across from an oncologist who's telling us that we need to go to Portland. And I said, why can't we stay here? And the doctor was very firm. She said, going to Portland was essential, that your cancer was rare and aggressive, and that it demanded a level of care far beyond what Bend could offer. So this meant that we had to leave our shire, our familiar life in Bend, for the uncertainties of this aggressive cancer treatment in Portland. And it wasn't something that I was thrilled about. And as I mentioned, my initial thought was about, wanting to stay home like a true hobbit, longing for the comforts of home. And that was something I was so clinging on to. Not wanting to go on this journey.
Not being thrust into this adventure you never asked for.
Exactly.
Yeah. But through the constant back and forth between Portland's hospitals, the Ronald McDonald House, and our home in Bend, we've come to a powerful realization, which is that we are each other's home, actually. Regardless of where we are, as long as we're together, we've found our true home. And so we've been able to laugh and cry and feel that deep connection, no matter where we are. Even if I were back here and you were still up in Portland and I were separated from you, I wouldn't feel like this house is our home right now. I just like Sam and Frodo, they're so close. We're obviously close in a different way. We're married and they're not romantically involved. They're just friends. Having you alongside, like I've mentioned, it's made all the difference in the world.
I think that's why I had a hard time when I came to Bend for maybe it was a week or longer when I was sick. I did a podcast episode. I'll link that in the show notes. But I just went through this period of just feeling really sad and really low because I was home, but you were still in Portland. I was sick. I had to quarantine. And so I was home, but I didn't feel like I was home. So you are my home, Thomas. Sorry, Kitty, our cat's on the couch across from us. She's so sweet. She's not my home.
I don't think she heard you. She's sleeping right now.
Okay, good. Shoo. Yeah. All right. So now let's dive into the main strategies and parallels we found between our journey and the Fellowship of the Ring. Understand the power of owning your story and maybe sprinkle a little brain science in. What do you think?
That sounds great. Let's do it. I'll do a chime or something. No, that's a robot. No, that's a robot. Okay, we're back. All these buttons.
I know, we got fancy with the buttons.
Hey, transition music. We found it. So tip number 1, build your fellowship.
Just like the fellowship strength came from its diverse members who were all supporting each other, we've also learned the importance of cultivating strong social connections from the very beginning. When we had this call to adventure, call to go get this treatment, we had these people who came around us, this fellowship, so to speak.
Yeah.
And this has been our friends, our family, our neighbor taking care of sweet Kitty who's sitting across from us. And it's about learning to be each other's Sam, that person who's so, unconditionally loving you, coming alongside you, and who helps remind you of your values, maybe some of those shared values that you have. So as we share our burdens and these experiences together, it makes it more bearable when we do this. And a little bit of brain science coming from that brain perspective, when we connect with others, our brains release this feel-good chemical called oxytocin. We've talked about it before. Yeah. And it's like this warm hug for your brain. Plus, it activates the part of our brain that helps us understand and empathize with others, which makes those connections even stronger.
Yeah, that's good. Second, embracing the perilous path. The fellowship faces numerous dangerous challenges, often feeling lost and uncertain. And we faced our own perilous path, but we've learned to find courage in facing difficult situations, understanding that these challenges lead to growth. It might feel like we're wandering in the dark at times, but as Tolkien wrote, not all those who wander are lost.
I love that. There's a lot of bumper stickers that I see in Bend.
Yeah.
People who, it says, not all who wander are lost.
Usually on a Subaru Outback too.
Yes. I wonder if they know they probably know it's from The Lord of the Rings.
They have to. I hope they do.
I hope they do too.
But not all who wander are lost. And sometimes it's in those moments of uncertainty that we find our true strength. This also relates to understanding the chapters of your own story. Sometimes those chapters are dark, but they're still a part of your narrative.
That's a really powerful point, Thomas. And it brings to mind the words of Christine Caine, who's an Australian activist, an author, and an international speaker who's dedicated her life to empowering others and fighting justice. Fighting injustice, I mean. That's a crucial word there.
Yeah, very good distinction.
She once said, sometimes when you're in a dark place and you think you've been buried, you've actually been planted.
Wow. When we're going through those moments of uncertainty, those dark chapters in our story, it can definitely feel like we're being buried under the weight of it all. We might feel lost, overwhelmed, and like we're just trying to survive. But what if instead of being buried, we are actually being planted? That's such a cool concept.
Oh, I love that. So what if those challenges, the moments of feeling lost, are actually the very things that are helping us grow stronger roots? What if they're preparing us for a future we can't even imagine yet? Like us starting this podcast.
Right.
8 months ago, having a podcast about bringing on challenges and helping people who are going through cancer, that was never on our radar. And even, we were helping your mom, supporting her through her cancer journey, but we didn't think that it was the time to do a podcast.
Right.
That wasn't part of our story yet. And yet with this additional cancer, your cancer, it's brought us to a place, this future that we could not have ever imagined. And it makes me think that just like a seed needs to be buried in darkness before it can sprout and grow, we need to go through those difficult times to develop resilience, that strength and a deeper understanding of ourselves. And actually, the brain science totally backs this up.
Of course it does.
You can think about this concept of, it's actually called experience-dependent neuroplasticity. So when we face challenges, especially the prolonged or intense ones, our brains aren't just passively reacting to it. So your cancer journey, 8 months is a very long time. This isn't just a passive reacting. Our brains are actively rewiring themselves, and these connections between neurons strengthen or weaken based on our experiences. So when you are repeatedly navigating difficult situations, our brains become more efficient at handling stress, better at regulating emotions, better at problem solving. It's like our brains are saying, okay, we've seen this before. We know how to handle it. And this is how we build resilience, and how those dark places actually become fertile ground for growth. So that feeling of being planted isn't just a metaphor, it's a neurological reality. And if you're interested in learning more about Christine Caine, she has a really good book. It's called Unshakable. It's 365 days of devotions where it has her wisdom scriptures from the Bible and really encouraging stuff. We read it every day over coffee.
Mm-hmm. So tip number 3, remembering that all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. So Frodo, overwhelmed by his burden, expresses a desire for a different reality.
Like I did.
Right. Understandably. But Gandalf reminds him that we have agency in how we respond. And this is the ultimate owning of your story, you know.
Yes. So in Gandalf's response, so do all, I'm not going to do this. Can you say it? I'm not as good.
Yeah. So do all who live to see such times.
This acknowledges Frodo's humanity. He wasn't like, get over it, dude. He didn't say like, think about the greater picture, or no, he pauses and he acknowledges this fear, but then he redirects Frodo's focus to agency and meaning. And it highlights the importance of finding purpose even in difficult circumstances, which is a concept that aligns with post-traumatic growth. A lot of us have heard of post-traumatic stress, but there's the concept of post-traumatic growth.
So good.
What's that thing that you like to say?
If I'm going to go through this, I want to grow through this.
Mic drop. That's really good.
I'd like to think that I made that up.
We have not Googled to confirm. We're just going to believe that Thomas came up with that.
I'm sure someone else somewhere said it.
But we'll never know
I'll never
ourselves.
know. Yeah.
And so David Kessler is a grief expert, and he actually proposes that it's about finding meaning even amidst suffering. And so, there's the 5 stages of grief. He proposes that we should have a 6th stage, which is about finding meaning once you've gone through. And of course, the stages are not necessarily linear. They can be cyclical, but making sure that people come to this place where they can find meaning, even amidst suffering.
Right.
And from a brain science perspective, when we choose how to respond to a situation, we feel more in control, and that lowers our stress levels. It's like, even when things are tough, we can still steer the ship to an extent.
Right.
And when we focus on finding meaning and purpose, neurologically, our brains release chemicals that make us feel good and motivated. And it ties into finding a light in the darkness. Our brains are wired to find that light. We do have a negativity bias, but once we shift and decide, you know what? I'm not going to get overwhelmed by the darkness. I'm going to look for the good. I'm going to look for the light. Then our brains are wired to focus on that and to look for the good of our situation. We talk about gratitude a lot. So sometimes the journey is on purpose, but even when we feel lost and it doesn't seem purposeful, we are finding our way. And Gandalf and Frodo were on that journey, a wandering journey at times. They knew the direction they were going, but there were a lot of things they didn't anticipate along the way.
Right.
So to solidify these ideas from the Fellowship of the Ring, here's a recap of those 3 takeaways. Number 1, forge your fellowship. Create a strong, supportive relationship, or relationships, plural, that provide a sense of belonging and shared purpose. Number 2, embrace the perilous path. Acknowledge the inevitability of facing difficult challenges and reframe them as opportunities for growth. And finally, choose your response. Decide how you'll respond to the circumstances you face, as Gandalf wisely advised. And again, this is fluid. You might not have the best response at first. You might be, frustrated or not wanting to go a certain way, but give yourself grace as you ultimately find your purpose and your meaning.
Great recap. And also, we encourage you to find your own inspiration. Find the story, the movie, the song, whatever it is that speaks to you, that resonates with your own journey, that inspires you to push through the hard times. Yes. Because those touchstones, those sources of inspiration, they can be the light that guides you through dark times.
We hope you've found some comfort and inspiration, and that you'll join us for the next part of our journey as we explore the 2 towers. And in that episode, we'll be discovering how even when our paths diverge, when we face seemingly insurmountable challenges or obstacles, inner strength and enduring friendships can guide us towards hope and renewal. Thanks so much for listening.
Take care.